problem, the challenge, I should say perhaps, with a power meter is analysis. There's quite honestly an overwhelming amount of data you're going to get from your power meter. What we need to do is we need to boil all this information down to something which is meaningful. The way we do that is we need a starting place. Most of us use like our maximum heart rate as a reference point, or our lactate threshold heart rate, which is what I recommend as a reference point. So when you're out for a workout with a heart rate monitor and you say, my heart rate now is 123, that means something because you compare it with something else. For example, your lactate threshold heart rate or your max heart rate. It's the same thing with a power meter. We have to compare it with something to know what the number means. The thing we compare it with is what we call functional threshold power. The way you find it is very simple. You can do it many different ways. One way is to simply go out and do a 1-hour time trial. So you go out and just simply ride your bike for 1 hour as hard as you can. Your average power when you got done is your functional threshold power. We could also find that functional threshold power in other ways. Besides doing a time trial. You could do a race. If any of you are bike racers and you went and did a 1-hour criterium, for example, at the end of 1 hour, your average power output would be very close to your functional threshold power. Knowing this FTP tells us a lot, because now when you do this workout, we can compare what your average workout power was with your functional threshold power and know how hard that workout was. In other words, how much stress you were generating or experiencing during the workout. So if John's functional threshold power is 280 and he does a ride where he averages 140, we know he was 50% of his functional threshold power. That's pretty easy. If he averaged 280, we know he was working very hard. He was right at his functional threshold power. The other thing we have to know, though, is duration. How long did he ride at 140 or at 280? If he rode for 3 hours at 140, or if he rode for 1 hour at 140, for example, that would also define how much stress he experienced. So stress is the combination of intensity, which is power, or watts, and duration, which is time. So that's what stress is all about. Training on a bicycle is essentially a process of stressing the body and then allowing it to recover, and during that process, it grows and becomes stronger. The power meter allows us to be very precise about measuring the intensity side of stress. Let's talk now about how to actually do a workout. There's 3 things we'll look at here. One is a calendar mode using the software. Another is workout creation. And a third is actually completing or doing a workout. Here's a calendar mode. So what I would do with this is I'm going to use it for 2 things. I could use it simply to gather data, and then I'd be able to look at it after the workout's over, or in the future if I want to compare workouts, see how I'm doing, measure progress, I would have it all captured here. Also, I can use it as a diary. I can also use it as a way of creating workouts or a way of prescribing training. I start off perhaps with a 15-minute warm-up, which is basically what John's been doing here, and then I can create anything I want to. I can create intervals on here. I can create long steady states. So it's an endless number of things I can create with this device, with this software rather. I can then upload that data to my handlebar unit, and the handlebar then gives me feedback to tell me when it's time to start the interval, when it's time to finish the interval, what the power should be during the interval. So I've got all that data on here, and I can see it and then respond to my device just as if my coach is along with me.